And hello, everybody. Oh my God. Sorry, I've just been rushing around and I came running in from a meeting and I didn't have anything set up. I just forgot to nearly put my light on so you wouldn't be able to see me because it's very dark in here. We've got a beautiful sunset. But I'm here and I'm ready to smash some cocktails, some Boulevardiers and some Barberas with you all. Hello, hello. I don't even have my phone with me. What have I done with my phone? That's interesting. Oh, well, if you text me, I won't be able to respond. But anyway, that's okay. It's lovely to see you. Hello, Fiona. Hello, Kay. Hello, Cotty and John. You've gone for a Barbera Dusty from Calendar Paolo. Hello, Polly. Polly knows I've got chips today. Hello, Peter and Karen. How you going? You got your cocktails ready to go? Excellent. Hello, David. Hello, Sarah. Thank you for your email this afternoon. It made me feel much better. Hello, Rob and Deb. Jill's just returned from feeding the cat. And I have got so many drinks to make and I'm being left on my own with the dogs and with the drinks. So that'll be interesting. So, sip of water. Ciao, Rob and Deb. Come stai? Let's make a cocktail real quick. So I don't have a proper old-fashioned glass, but I have one of these all-rounder water glasses and the glasses that I like to use for cocktails. I have some ice. So this is a really simple cocktail. Any of you who know how to make a Negroni know how to make a Boulevardier. So we just put, if you've got a big, hello Craig, you went with the Barbera Nebbiolo blend from the Langhe. Excellent. I'm just going to put some ice in here. If you've got big cubes of ice, even better. And I've got a question for the scientists amongst you. I went into the freezer just then to get my big block of ice, and the ice tray that I'd filled up, albeit probably a couple of months ago, because I didn't get myself organised this week to put fresh ice in the fridge, so it's probably a good thing that it wasn't okay. But the ice blocks had shrunk, and it's not, as my father thought, that when we put the water in the ice tray into the freezer that we spilt water or that the ice tray has a leak. I've seen this phenomenon happen in mum and dad's freezer a number of times, that you put a full ice tray in and then a couple of months later the ice blocks are a half or a quarter. It's the defrost setting. Is it, Fiona? Excellent. I knew one of you would know. So my glass for my cocktail. I'm going to give you an overview of what I'm doing because, again, I got a message from Sarah today saying that she had to go out and buy some more bourbon because mysteriously her last bottle of bourbon had disappeared. And I found the same thing. But being necessity being the mother of invention, I decided instead of going out to buy a whole bottle of bourbon, because I find I don't drink bourbon a lot anymore, although old fashions would be great. Some water in gaseous state, small amount in equilibrium with ice. Defrost takes it away. So some of the water, okay. Keep writing, Fiona. This is really interesting. So while Fiona's explaining to me why my ice blocks shrink in the freezer, I'm going to introduce you to my whiskey that I'm using for my Boulvardier, which is an Irish whiskey called Writer's Tears. I really like Irish whiskey as a substitute for bourbon or rye because it has a little bit of a sweetness to it still, even though it's not a classic bourbon style. I think it works pretty well. So I've got a whiskey. I've got my dear friend David Chapman's vermouth that we've met before, for those of you who have done cocktails with me with vermouth. So that's a lovely red vermouth made from Pinot Noir juice down here on the peninsula. It's rather delicious. I'll be sad when that bottle's finished because David's moved away from the peninsula and I'll have to go searching for some more. And my little bit of Campari left. And again, look at that, using up all the scraps. So when we're making a stirred cocktail like this, that we're not using, we don't actually need the cocktail shaker. So I hope nobody went out and bought a cocktail shaker to make a Boulevardier. If you want to make a Manhattan, you need the cocktail shaker. But for the Boulevardier, we don't need this. We just need the measuring jigger, which you don't need to take off your cocktail shaker. You can have a jigger that's separate. What they say when you make cocktails is to use the least expensive ingredient first. I'm not quite sure why that is. Maybe it's in case you stuff it up, then you're not wasting your good stuff. So I'm going to put some Campari in first. 30 mils of Campari into the glass. So I'm going to bring the glass up to, there we go, into the glass like that. There's our Campari. Love Campari. Could just do Camparis and soda one day, and Campari and blood orange juice. Then we do 30 mils of the vermouth. Now, probably quite a lot of you have got Rosso Martini or something like that for your red vermouth. Cinzano, Rosso works, or something fancy from Australia. There's a lot of fancy Australian vermouths these days. So now that's looking like that. Nice red, beautiful. Then we get our whiskey. Now, if you're making this with bourbon or with rye from America, then you're going to get a slightly spicier drink than what I'm making here. This will be slightly smoother because it's got the Irish whiskey in it, but it'll still do the trick, and it'll still be delicious. So then you get your spoon, which in my excitement I forgot to get. So luckily I have a knife that I can use. It just needs to be a stirring implement. We're getting very elegant here. How many people are drinking cocktails, by the way? I know Sarah is. Someone else is. I can't remember. Anyway, hopefully the rest of you are just sipping on your Barbera and waiting for me to get onto the wine. So give it a good stir, because you want, Peter and Karen, that's right. Give it a good stir because you want it to be nice and cold. And also, one of the tricks with these high booze, Fiona, Sarah, I know you are. One of the tricks with these sort of cocktails that are basically all alcohol and no filler is that you want some of the ice to melt to just dilute it a little bit. It helps the flavours meld, but it also helps you get less inebriated less quickly. I think that makes sense. Anyway, that's your cocktail finished. Now we do have to, being classy people that we are, we need a garnish. I have my little orange garnish. So this is an orange grown behind our tennis court, so it's not waxed. It's virgin orange. What I do is, Fiona, oh dear. And Kate, yeah, Kate, for me it's vodka. I can't do vodka. Hi, Shell. So what you want to do with your orange peel, I'm getting distracted by all the exciting comments that you're making, is you want to get some of the essential oil out of the skin. So you sort of just press it sort of quite gently over the glass. And I find if you try and twist it, unless you're a real expert, which I'm not, if you try and twist it, it just snaps and then you have an ugly garnish, but it doesn't matter. You just chuck it in. It'll give you a nice little orangey flavour to your Boulvardier. And then you can say cheers or chin chin, as we say in France, and have a little sip of your Boulvardier. That's pretty delicious. So the Campari and the vermouth sweeten it, so you don't need to add any sugar syrup. The Gospel Street Rye. David, how fantastic. Did you do 2011 or 2021? How much whiskey did you use? Peter and Karen, I don't understand. No, I did one of each. Equal quantities. Oh, Craig's having old fashioned at a fancy bar. Oh, was having an old fashioned at a fancy bar, and they flame the orange peel. So if you flame the orange peel while you're squirting the oil out of the peel, it kind of caramelizes, and because it's oil, it sets itself alight, and it looks very dramatic as well. I can't do it. I've tried it a couple of times with a friend of mine who's much more serious about cocktails than me, but it's good fun. So it's a great cocktail. It's got a nice sweetness to it. I find, excuse me, my hair's sticking out. That's better. I find I do love a Negroni, which is the gin version of this. So Peter and Karen, I do my Negroni 111 as well. 30 mils of each. That's how I was taught to make a Negroni, and that's how I believe a Boulvardier is made. But it's all about the balance of flavors and how you like it. So you can do whatever you like as long as it tastes good to you. But if you're putting 4 shots of spirit into your glass, then you just got to remember there's probably quite a good kick to it. Fiona, a Negroni is fantastic. I love a Negroni, and that's probably my go-to sort of Campari drink. Love it. But the Boulevardier is basically a Negroni with whiskey in it instead of gin. So and it just makes it a little bit toastier, a little bit spicier, and it's pretty delicious actually. So that's your Boulevardier. Cheers, everyone. Now, for those of you who are not interested in cocktails and who have gone straight to your Barbera, I sound like I'm on speed, don't I? I'm going to slow down now. I was just a bit worried. I'm also going to look at this. Look what I found. I found purple potato chips, which are my snack of choice tonight. Let's explore them together. Look at that. That is awesome. Same color as my glasses. Yum. Oh, good, Sarah. Thank you. Okay. So Rob and Deb are suggesting that the excuse me. Let me just the Michele Chiaro. Rob and Deb, you're saying that it needs a bit of air? Well, amazingly, Leonie, who I sent home with a cocktail, I'm glad you like it, Leonie, cheers, left me some of her bottle of the Michele Chiaro Barbera. So I've had it decanted into a half bottle. I'm going to put some in my glass. Now, the thing about Barbera is that it can be quite closed, and it can need a bit of air, especially when it's young. Let's see what you're all talking about with the... Yep, it's a little bit... it is under screw cap, isn't it? It's a little bit reductive, so it needs a little bit of air to it. So, yes, stick it in a decanter or just get it in your glass and give a good swirl. Let it kind of open up. Oh, David and Fiona having a Bruno Giacosa Falletto Barbera d'Alba. I love that wine. And my other Barbera of choice, and it's ridiculous because I have no drinking companions here at Moorooduc tonight. Mum and Dad are going to a tasting, but I promised I'd leave them some of this, so I can't drink it all, which is probably good because I have to get home anyway. Thank you, Kate. So just let that wine open up, keep swirling while I talk to you a little bit about Barbera. And this is Chiara Boscus's Barbera. I love her Barolos. She's an amazing Barolo producer. And these wines are harder to get hold of because not a lot of any of her wines come into the country. So we get, because I used to work for the people who import it and we're still good friends, which is always nice. I get a little allocation every year, and I got my phone call. Oh, no, it wasn't a phone call. It was an email from Matt saying, do you want some 2021s? And when he's allocating, he's not just allocating Barolo, but he's also allocating Nebbiolo and Barbera. So I thought I was not going to have time to get to the shops, and I didn't realise that Leonie was going to give me some of her wine. So I thought, well, I don't have an Australian Barbera on the table. I hope some of you guys are having an Aussie Barbera. But I do have 2 different Italian wines sort of at different ends of the scale. And this is one of the cool things about this grape variety. Italian wines, most of them still need a corkscrew. what I'm trying to say. And let's pop myself a dirty glass. That's no good. It's just a little bit of something on the outside. It's fine on the inside. So let's get some of that in the glass as well. And it's such a classy little label. It's pretty, isn't it? Italians do packaging very, very well. What do I do with that cork? Should go back in the bottle so we don't get vinegar flies. Now, if you're still sipping away at your Boulvardier, that's okay, because these Barberas are going to need a bit of time to open up. Craig Moretti was actually screw cap. Oh, there you go. So now I'm making sure that I haven't got my wines mixed up. Oh, no, I think I'm right. Yeah, cool. Hello, Michael. Hi, Kate. Did I see you heading towards the winery in a small car at about 5:50? I was on my way to the winery at about 5:50. Yeah, about 5:45. I drive a dirty white Subaru XV, so it's not the smallest car in the world, but it's not the biggest car in the world. So perhaps you did see me, Michael. Were you leaving the winery? The only car I saw, and I was kind of thinking about, that was me. Were you driving a truck with an L plate on it? I don't think that was you. It was me. It was me driving towards the winery. Hello, Peter. How are you? Zonzo Estate Barbera. How fantastic. How gorgeous. No, well, Michael, that was very good spotting of me. Very sneaky. That was me. And that's why I was rushing around a little bit right at the beginning. Okay, so the Chianti is still really closed, whereas the Chiaraboscus wine is much more lifted and perfumed as it just comes out of the bottle. It's a 2020, so it's had a little bit of time in the cellar. We bought it a year ago, and I think that probably helps. Are you stalking me? Excellent, just heading to your summer's home. Unreal. Well, it was nice to pass you on the road, Michael. Craig, we'll talk about the Halliday ratings in a little while. Have you seen them? They're actually quite good. Although I haven't got the book yet. I've only looked at the website, and Duck Pinot wasn't up on the website this afternoon when I last looked. So it's keeping me in suspenders. But yeah, I'll talk to you about the Halliday ratings after I finish talking about Barbera. Or maybe while we wait for the Barbera to open up. So Barbera as a grape variety, I'm very tempted to keep drinking this cocktail, but it's quite sweet. David, I think the Pinot glass is a good thing for opening up a young Barbera. I've gone for my Chianti glasses, and I'm kind of regretting the decision, but because I'm on air, I'm not going to go running into the glass room now to get glasses. If Dad wanders past, I might ask him to get me some Pinot glasses, but otherwise I'll just have to soldier on. But a wine like this, so Barbera is I guess it's regarded as sort of the middle variety in the triumvirate of red varieties from Piedmont. So in Piedmont, the sort of the variety that's regarded as the most important, most serious, most internationally renowned is Nebbiolo, particularly in the form of Barolo. At the other end of the scale, we have a gorgeous little grape variety called Dolcetto, which means little sweet one. A little sweet one doesn't refer to the wine that's made from it, but the grapes are little and they're very sweet. So you get really lovely, flavoursome. Oh, well done, Shell. You've picked up a Nebbiolo that sounded like a Barbera. Oops. What was your, sorry, Shell, I missed your question. Hang on, I'm going to go back. Shell, we picked up a Boschi dei Signori Barbaresco. It has the same as a Barbera. No, it's not the same as a Barbera. It's a Barbaresco so Barolo and Barbaresco are the two high-end wines made from Nebbiolo. So hopefully, Shell, that is a beautiful wine that you've got, but it's not a Barbera. But it does start with B, and it has almost Barbera in the name, Barbaresco. So pretty awesome. Jeremy, hello, welcome. when Jeremy thinks of this variety, I think acid line. Is this something regardless of where it comes from? Absolutely, Jeremy. So Rob and Deb have commented that they understand that it's a low tannin variety, but this seems to have a bit. Cotty said that they had the Dalba and an Asti at the independent wine store. We went with the Asti, beautifully balanced, though tannin heavy. Next time we try the Alba. So vintage cellars reduced from $60 to $15. Go get as much of that as you possibly can. How fabulous. Fiona, I'll deal with that in a moment because that's outrageous. No, Peter and Karen, Barbera's got nothing to do with Zinfandel. You're thinking about Primitivo. Okay, back to Barbera. Wow, so many questions. I love it. I love it. I love it. So Zinfandel and Primitivo are the same grape variety, and Primitivo is grown down in the south of Italy, whereas Barbera is grown up in Piedmont, and it's Frodo, shush. I'm trying to do my show. Frodo's guarding us because he's getting upset about Jill and Richard running around slamming doors. Okay, so David, oh my God, I'm just so completely losing. Oh, all right, I'm coming back to you, Inchleys, about those comments. Craig, okay, give me a moment. Let me catch up on myself. Okay, good, excellent. So, Barbera is the middle grape variety. Barbera can be made in a whole range of different styles, from kind of light, easy drinking, gluggable styles, sometimes with a little bit of residual sugar, sometimes slightly frizzante. Those styles don't come to Australia traditionally anymore because they're not seen as being serious by Australian wine drinkers. Unfortunately, we kind of don't have any tolerance for slightly fizzy, slightly sweet wine in this country because they can be really delicious. I've had a couple in Italy with local cured meats and they're delicious. They're very gluggable. And I think because I always find that Barbera, modern Barbera, tends to have quite a lot of tannin, Rob and Deb. So I don't think you're wrong there. It's the way that the wine is made and how they work on extracting the tannin and how soon after the wine's been fermented and matured in barrel, it gets bottled. So wine production method for Barbera has changed a lot in the last 20, 30, 40 years. It used to be made very simply and it was quite gluggable and light and not a lot of tannin extracted from the skins. These days, much more serious, much more structured, darker coloured. You can see both of these wines that I'm looking at are quite dark in colour. I look at them through the light and they're they're very ruby, dark ruby. Now, Kay, you're saying you're not loving the Michele Chiaro. It's taking a long time to open up and I haven't put it in my mouth yet, so let me have a little taste. Remembering it's a $20 wine from Dan Murphy's, so it's always going to be a bit entry level, particularly for wine that's been imported, and particularly Italian wines. Entry level Italian wines, particularly, tend to have less fruit, tend to have more. Yours is $34 from Dan's. I saw it on the website for $20, so I don't know what's going on there. Maybe that was a special website price or a special wine club price, or you got the 2019. Okay, well maybe. Anyway, I'm sorry you're not enjoying it. I hope you've got something to fall back on if you. But this one for me, Leonie, you'll be able to tell me, was your bottle also $34, or was it a higher price? It was one of the reasons that I recommended this, because when I had it, you got it from Dan's for $20. So I think, Kay, you've found their special museum stash that they put a higher price on to milk a bit more money from you. And I don't think this style of Barbera is not made for aging. So probably, and I'm guessing, but probably a lot of that bright fruit has fallen away from your wine, Kate, and you're just getting sort of a vinegary kind of a savoury kind of a flavour profile, because it's not a very structured wine, and it does have a little bit of that balsamic sort of vinegar kind of a flavour to it, but it's got nice, the young wine that I'm tasting has got this lovely kind of bright cherry fruit, and that's what you get from a young version of this. So I'm really sorry, Kay, that's dreadful. I think you should take it back and ask them for the young version. That was what you were looking for. Rob and Debbie was served by Nigel. How fantastic. We're going to go and visit him on tomorrow, Friday, because James is heading off to South Australia on the weekend. So we thought we'd pop in and say hi. Leonie, you thought yours was cheaper, even the 20. It's looking floral and fruity and mouthwatering, but it doesn't have a lot of structure. It's not hugely. It's got nice acid. It's got a little bit of kind of almost dusty tannin. The tannin's quite mouth drying, but it's not really heavy as a wine. I see this as being a really good kind of pizza wine because it's got that sort of acid, that sour cherry kind of a note to it. Well, it's really kind of quaffable, but it sounds like yours might have been a bit out of condition. So Barbera can be like this though, kind of made light and soft and floral and easy drinking, and it's got a bit of plum and a bit of cherry to it, whereas a lot of Italian wines are more cherry, less plum. Jill and Richard are both looking gorgeous going out to their tasting. See you later, Jill. Would you like to wave to everybody as you go out the door while I have a little sip of this? Jill, doesn't she look lovely? Is Richard running away?
See you,
That's right, Jeremy. Go and see Nigel. He'll sort you out. Absolutely. They are looking fab, aren't they? Dad's got all his wine glasses, so he's all ready to go. See you later, guys. I'll lock up after I've finished. Woo, party here. So in comparison, the Chiaraboscus Barbera, which it does need pizza, absolutely, Loans. No, Shell, we never let Reggie inside. He, for one thing, the dogs would eat him. I do have a story about Reggie getting inside. I don't know how it happened, but Mum and Dad came back from being away for a few hours. They must have gone out for lunch or something. And they came in and there were peacock feathers all over the floor of the dining room. And the door was open. So someone hadn't closed that door properly. And they were like, oh my God, where's the corpse? Because Frodo was sitting down, and I think Polly was here then, was also sitting down, and everything was quiet, and the dogs were looking a little shamefaced, and they looked around, and you can see, if I turn this around to see that sideboard with the mirror on it, he was sitting on there. He'd got away from the dogs. He was sitting up there completely untouched, and he survived his little ordeal inside. So no, we don't let Reggie inside. He also isn't toilet trained, and he doesn't understand how to behave inside. So no, Shell, we don't. So traumatic, I know. And all his feathers, they pulled out all of his tail feathers, poor bird. But he was actually intact, so that was very lucky. So we've talked about this Chiaro Barbera, which is best drunk early. Drink it with pizza, drink it with some chips, drink it with something a little bit greasy, or some oily cured meat, that kind of thing. It needs sort of salt and fat and meatiness and melted cheese and tomato to make it really kind of pop. I think it's pretty delicious just as it is. So that's good. But in recent times, a lot of the better producers in Piedmont have sort of realised that Barbera is actually almost their favourite grape variety. It's sort of the secret favourite grape variety when they're making their Nebbiolo, Barolo, and Barbaresco. And Shell, how is your Barbaresco? It's probably quite high in acid, high in tannin, paler in colour than the Barberas that we're having, I'm imagining. And I imagine also it will have a sort of quite a rose petal, a dark rose petal kind of a nose, and but then also a slightly weird kind of tarry road surface creosote kind of an aromatic as well. That's your classic Nebbiolo aroma profile. So it is quite weird. Hopefully it doesn't have cork taint. Hopefully that's kind of breathed up and breathed off. Peter the Zonzo Barbera is $25. Lovely plum and cherry, having it with homemade pizza with salami and anchovy. Perfect. That is the perfect match to a Barbera. And I think, like, right at the beginning of the tasting, Craig, you asked me what climate Barbera likes to grow in and where it does best in Australia, maybe. The climate it likes is warm but not too hot. It likes a long, dry ripening season, and it likes quite a lot of sunshine, but not too hot. So the King Valley and the Alpine Valley in Victoria are perfect for growing Barbera. They grow some very successfully in the Yarra Valley, as Peter's already alluded to. There's quite a bit being grown around the Adelaide Hills as well in South Australia. So it's it's an Italian variety that's done pretty well in Australia. I think it's a little bit more forgiving than Sangiovese is, or Nebbiolo, or even Dolcetto. And it makes a lovely kind of medium-bodied, deep red wine that has good tannin structure, but not too much, and has, as you say, Peter, that lovely plum and cherry kind of fruit character to it, which is really rather delicious. Great with tomato-based dishes, like a pizza, like a bowl of pasta, that kind of thing. Really good. The cheddar is divine with the cocktail. Good shell. That's fantastic. Now I'm going to come back to my Italian Barbera d'Alba that I'm having from Chiara Boscus. Now, as I said, we only get a couple of bottles of these as an allocation every year. So as I also said, I promised Dad that I would keep him some so he could taste it tomorrow. Immediately I opened it, it had more aromatics to it than the Chialo. It had really beautiful sort of violet aromatics, cherries, but also some plum there. It's quite floral though, quite lifted. But then on the palate, again, and this is interesting because Dad served this wine to Mum and Sue after a dog walk while I was overseas, and Sue didn't like it at all and Mum didn't like it much either. It is a wine that needs food, because even this wine, this kind of high quality, more expensive wine than the Chialo, it is high in acid. It's really tangy. As Jeremy said, these wines have high acid. So on the palate, they're a bit like, they've got this kind of herbal note, and they've got this balsamic kind of almost vinegary kind of a note to them, which, as Kate's saying, on its own, the wine is a little difficult, but you put it with food, pasta bolognese, so it's okay with the pasta. It's not delicious with the pasta, Kate. Again, I'm sorry to hear that it's not delicious, but I'm glad that it's better with the food, because almost all Italian wine and Italian grape varieties, even made in Australia, are better with food than they are on their own, which is why I have some chips, at least. My purple chips, God, they're good, aren't they? The chips kind of don't add a lot to the wine, because in Italy you wouldn't drink a wine like this with just a bowl of chips. You'd have your spaghetti bolognese, or you'd have your slow cooked beef short ribs on a bed of polenta, or you'd have your grilled pork sausages, or you'd have your slow cooked brasato of beef. The Italians love to slow cook meat and serve it with something starchy, so potato, polenta, maybe some risotto, something like that. Pasta, obviously. Slow cooked meat that's all sort of falling apart, and high acid kind of tangy wine like this, which really kind of cuts through the fat of the food and brings out the fruit in the wine. Okay, I bought my purple chips from Tully's. Had to do a little local shop this morning to get myself organised, which is pretty awesome. They're quite fun. They're rather tasty, actually. I highly recommend them. There you go. They're just salted. They're not fancy flavour or anything. They're just salted. They're nice. Now, somebody asked me a question before that I said I would come back to. Yes. We were talking about Barbaresco and Barolo, and Barbaresco being for the ladies and Barolo being for the gentlemen. There's a very old-fashioned way of talking about Barbaresco and Barolo, and a little bit out of touch with modern Barbarescos and Barolos. But to be fair to whoever said that to you guys, traditionally Barolo was heavier and darker, more structured and more savoury, and Barbaresco tended to be a bit more lifted, floral, delicate, pretty. But these days, with modern viticulture and modern winemaking, because Barbaresco is a slightly cooler site than Barolo, basically. But these days, it's very hard to really say that all Barbarescos are lighter and all Barolos are heavier and darker and more savoury. Yes, Fiona, I think that he probably was talking about the old-fashioned folks in Europe. But these days, even the absolute experts on Piedmont would struggle in a blind tasting to correctly identify Barbaresco from Barolo. And the most famous modern wine from Piedmont is actually Barbaresco from Angelo Gaia, who you might have heard of. His wine labels are really classic. They're white with just a big black stripe across the top, and Gaia in gorgeous black type in the middle of it. And he makes a blended Barbaresco, and then he makes single vineyard Barbarescos, and they're outrageously expensive these days. Highly collectible, rather delicious. And his daughter is called Gaia, because Gaia is also an Italian girl's name, and she's taking over the business, and she's pretty awesome as well. So anyway, that's Barolo Barbaresco. We're talking about Barbera tonight, just to confuse you all. So yes, Craig, I will come back to that in just a moment, because I think Rob and Deb have just asked me an important question about the wine. I was going to flash barbecue some lamb rump steaks, but I'm concerned they won't be fatty enough for this wine. Thoughts? I think they'll be delicious, Rob and Deb, because lamb's got that sweetness to it, which even if it's not too fatty, the sweetness of the lamb will bring out the fruit of the wine. I think it'll work well. Fiona, I agree. The Barbera is lovely and structured, but no grippy tannins. So it's acid structure that Barbera is more about acid structure, as Jeremy mentioned right at the top of the session. The acid really kind of drives this wine, and the tannins are there, but they don't hang around too much. They just kind of float along at the same pace as the rest of the wine, which is rather gorgeous. So, Craig, do they often do blends initially? Is it usually just leftover issues? They don't often do blends of Barbera. Craig, certainly not the serious wine producers. I couldn't really. I don't really think traditionally the Piedmontese winemakers, I don't think they tend to blend across Barbera, Nebbiolo, and Dolcetto, but there are a couple of people who play around with sort of a more modern approach to winemaking and have done some experimentation on blending. And I certainly know of one which I think I've talked to you about before. Pedericola make a wine called Bricco del Drago, which has got a gorgeous kind of pencil drawing of a dragon on it, on its label. And it's a Dolcetto and Nebbiolo blend, but not Barbera. Barbera tends to be 100% Barbera, but I'm sure there are people who are kind of pushing the envelope a bit on that. But generally, it's straight varietals. Bruna has taken over from Bruno. Yes, indeed. Cotty, we also picked up a bottle of Truffle Hound from South Australia. It's a blend of Barbera, Sangiovese, Nebbiolo, and Merlot. I'm now thinking that's a bit much. So in Australia, we haven't been growing and making these Italian varietals for very long. And as I said before, I think that Barbera has probably done best out of all of them. So putting Merlot aside, I mean, you've got to get rid of your Merlot somehow, Cotty. So you might as well, if you're going to do a multi-varietal blend, might as well chuck a bit of Merlot in to kind of, plump it out a bit. But Sangiovese and Nebbiolo are both really tricky varietals. They're a bit like Pinot Noir in that you need to understand how to prune the vines. You need to understand how to look after the vines during the growing season. And a lot of people have suggested that the early plantings of Sangiovese and Nebbiolo in Australia were not necessarily the right clones for here. I'm not sure where in South Australia the Truffle Hound is made. Is it an Adelaide Hills wine, Cotty? Can you see on the label? But I think if it's Adelaide Hills or if it's McLaren Vale, perhaps it's probably just a tiny bit warm for those varietals. So, and probably if those vines are young, then they're not Clear Valley. Okay, interesting. If those vines are young, they might be not expressing themselves as well as they could from older vines. And I think that as well, a lot of people will plant little bits and pieces of things and then sort of blend them across a few different varieties to kind of make a more complex wine. Also, if none of them are kind of standing out as being, exceptional examples of Barbera or Sangiovese or Nebbiolo, if you blend them together, then you've got more volume. You can kind of make a nice kind of field blend and sell it out. It's a nice way of making a sort of a wine with some interest and some complexity without it necessarily being a traditional attempt to make a traditional Italian wine, because obviously in Italy they just wouldn't ever blend those four varieties together because they don't grow them in the same parts of Italy. So there's not really Sangiovese doesn't really work in Piedmont, and Barbera and Nebbiolo are only grown in Piedmont in Italy. So that's traditionally you wouldn't see that blend because they're just not from the same part of Italy, and Italy is very regimented in what grows where and who does what. Whereas in Australia, we can do whatever we like. And so just having that ability to sort of play around and mix things up, then you can make whatever wine you think works best. If you blend across them and you go, oh, that's better than they are on their own, then why not chuck them all together? Bit of Merlot to give it a bit more plushness and softness, and Bob's your uncle. So it's one of those lovely things about growing and making wine in Australia, I've got to say, because often people say, oh, so Australia's not as good as Europe because we don't have as many rules about how we make wine. We don't have the tradition that they have in Europe, these traditions that have grown over hundreds and hundreds of years. And Italy in particular, because it's got a great big mountain range that goes down the middle of Italy, and so the east and the west of Italy are separated from each other, and all the different parts of Italy were all different countries until fairly recently in Italy's history. They're all separate, and the food's separate, and the wine tradition is separate. Whereas in Australia, we've got people who came across from Sicily and who came across from Umbria to settle in Australia, and they met and they got married, and their traditions melded together. So we have like food combinations that you would never see in Italy happening in Australia from Italians who met in Australia from different parts of Italy. We have wine traditions that are being completely blown apart in Australia because, you've got one half of the union saying that my grape variety is Zinfandel, and the other saying, well, mine's Montepulciano. Well, let's grow them both and maybe we'll blend them together, because you can do that in Australia. We're not constrained by any old-fashioned rules or ideas of what you can and can't do, which means that we can play. We can play around with different varieties. We can play around with different blends. And if they don't work, then the market soon sorts that out. And if they do work and people buy it and drink it and come back and buy it and drink it again, then you keep making it. It's a success. And I think that's a really lovely thing about this part of the world. We blended Shiraz and Cabernet and just went more rogue from there. Indeed, Fiona, we did. We're not getting... Craig, you're such a troublemaker. You won't be getting a Moorooduc Estate Shiraz Pinot Noir blend. I can tell you that right now. Although James was trying to sell us some McLaren Vale Shiraz, which I don't think we can do much with here at Moorooduc. Sorry, James. Cotty, slight change of subject, thank God. John wants to know if the current warm weather is causing issues with bud burst. Jeremy, would you like to take that question if you're still there? I'll just give Jeremy a moment to respond if he wants to, and I'll answer that question. John, I think that's very good. Kay, I know Craig's always been a troublemaker, right? We love him. I think that Chialo Barbera is improving. I agree, Rob and Deb. It's opening up really slowly. If you did give it a decant, that was probably a good idea. But I'm getting some real kind of Morello cherry kind of notes coming out of it now. And the fruit is finally starting to emerge slowly. So it looks like Jeremy might have gone or is too traumatized to answer. So I'll answer for you. Yes, John, the current weather is causing huge issues for us. Jeremy was out in the Chardonnay vineyard today trying to get some of his pruning finished. He reckons he's got maybe 3 more days of pruning to do. And he was a bit upset because he was having to cut off buds that were starting to burst. So yes, we're racing Mother Nature, and it's not awesome, but we got to get on with getting that pruning finished. Okay. Yes, Craig, that date that I gave you. Oh, you weren't here last week. Yeah, no, I spoke to Joan and Karen about it last week, and they're all set. So you'll have to ask them for the details. No, it's October. That October date that I sent out in the email 2 weeks ago is set in stone. I will be sending out booking requests very, very soon. So yes, book those flights. We would love to see you down here, Joan and Craig and Karen as well. Anyone else as well who wants to come will be 8th of October. Thank you, Peter and Karen. See, I can rely on my trusty Drinks with Kate friends to get those dates right. Peter and Karen were at lunch on Sunday, as were Shell and Andrew and Connie and John and a few others of you who were here. And we were talking the 8th of October, very important, book it, it's sorted, it's set in stone. And we've also got the 17th of September, which I'll be sending out a notice about probably next week now. But that's our big celebratory 40 years of vines in the ground here at Moorooduc lunch, which is Sunday the 17th of September. So that'll be a big lunch, be awesome. But yes, Craig, Jill will be cooking some little hors d'oeuvres for us. She won't be cooking a full meal. It'll be an afternoon tasting, and there'll be snacks. Like we have snacks for the old Drinks with Kate. So oh, Fiona, that's dreadful, David. It was a great lunch, wasn't it, Connie? I'm glad you enjoyed, and you had a really nice table. October that you're being Kerala on an Ayurvedic no alcohol retreat. Michael, you've really, very, 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 very busy with your travel. That sounds amazing, though. We'll have a drink for you anyway. Barbera, in summary, is as we have a little love in on the chat between table 2 was on. You're going to be in Texas for the September dates. Any thoughts on Texas wines? Oh, Craig. Well, I can probably get together a list of wines from Texas that you could try. There are quite a few Texan vineyards these days, and quite a lot of people are growing in Texas. They're growing American varietals and hybrids to see how they work. They sort of work better in Texas than the Vitis vinifera. So they're interesting, the ones that I've tasted. I'm sure there are some delicious wines from Texas. I haven't found any of them yet, but if you would like, Craig, send me a little email or a little text, and I'll do. I've got some people on the ground in Texas who'll be able to give me some recommendations for you. So if you'd like that, let me know. But yeah, no, I'll be drinking Moorooduc Estate in September, not Texan wines. But that's okay. Texas is good fun for other things too. Okay, what was I saying? Oh, Barbera in general. Barbera, I really love Barbera. I drink quite a lot of Barbera at home with food. I think it needs food. It can be sort of inexpensive and relatively accessible, like the Chialo. It can be a bit fancier, like the Chiara Boscus and everything in between. The Australian wines are looking really good these days, and I don't know if anyone out there was drinking Pizzini or Del Zotto or Brown Brothers, but they're all good as well. And I think Barbera is a great variety to really keep an eye out for, because it makes really lovely medium to medium plus bodied wines, using a WSET term. I hate that. Medium bodied wines that are kind of sometimes verging towards being a bit more full bodied, with really good acidity, nice tanginess, enough tannin to pull them together. They're not really super long-term wines. And the Italians tried for a little while in the late 90s, early noughties to sort of make super Barberas by giving them a lot more new oak and stuff, and they just didn't like it. So I think the best Barberas coming from Italy and coming from Australia have got good fruit expression, not too much oak, are wines for drinking sort of now and over the next 5 years. They're not wines that you want to put away for decades and wait for monumental things to happen. They're just for enjoying. They're delicious wines with food. They work really well with tomato-based food and are really versatile. So that's my little précis on Barbera. I hope that you've enjoyed the Boulvardier. I'm not finishing up because I'm seeing there are a few more questions. Michael Woodward, I'm told Texas is in the top 5 wine growing states in the USA. It is, absolutely. But as I say, they're doing a lot of stuff with local varietals, and some of those wines from those local varietals can be really weird. Don't get me wrong, they're interesting. Just a lot of the American varietals have a very different aroma and flavour profile to Vitis vinifera. And people talk about things like foxy characters and stuff, which when I've tasted them, they've been quite unusual, but really interesting to explore. I'll get you a little list, Craig, of some of the better ones from some friends who are good at that kind of stuff. I think if you get a chance, I still think that Californian wine is pretty good. Fiona, I don't know if you've been close to a fox recently. We actually had one run past our front gate the other morning. Polly and I were just about to jump in the car, and this fox ran past, and it was maybe about 2 meters away from us, and this kind of animal kind of smell kind of wafted at us after it had gone past. It's pretty amazing. Is it for drinking Chardonnay near a lake? Okay, I'm not. Chardonnay. Is that what you're trying to say? Craig, I nearly forgot to answer your question about the Halliday scores. Aromatic in a sort of an animally kind of musky kind of way. Foxes have this musky kind of a smell. Chardonnay, yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Kate. Got it finally. Yeah, so a foxy smell it smells like, I don't know, my grandmother had a fox fur coat, and if you smell the fox fur, it's that but more musky, if that helps at all. It's a childhood memory of mine That's quite funky and musty. Yeah, absolutely. So Craig wanted to know about the Halliday scores for Moorooduc that came out overnight. And as I say, I haven't seen the review for the 2021 McIntyre Pinot Noir because inexplicably it wasn't loaded up on the Halliday website today when I looked. But we got gold medals for all of our other single vineyard wines from 2021. So that was the Robinson Chardonnay, which got 96, I think, the McIntyre Chardonnay, the Robinson Pinot, the Garden Pinot, the McIntyre Shiraz, which we haven't released yet and won't be releasing for a little while because we've just released the 19. But Jane also said it's good. It'll be better when it's had a couple more years in the bottle. So she was in agreement with us that it wasn't ready to be released. And the 2022 Pinot Gris on Skins also got a gold medal. And the words that she wrote about the wines were really lovely. It was really, it made my little heart sing. So the other 2021 wines all got silver medals. So that's the Estate Chardonnay, the Estate Pinot Noir, and the Estate Pinot Gris. So that was really awesome. Very happy with that. We'll no doubt be summarising all of those reviews at some stage if we can get around to it. But yeah, I think very happy with the results. I think that Jane Faulkner, who reviews all the Mornington Peninsula wines, I think she really enjoyed 2021's, which we have enjoyed them a lot as well. But yeah, pretty happy with that. Thank you very much. The weird thing is that we've sold most of the wines, so the Chardonnays are all gone, and the Pinot Noir. Well, Pinot Noir is current release, so that's nice. So yeah, good news. Cheers, everyone. A bit of Brettanomyces funk, but we call it Foxy. Yeah, Fiona. The Robinson Chardonnay is sold out, which was actually Jane's favourite wine, I think, of the bunch. The McIntyre Chardonnay 2021 is almost sold out. So if you are fans of the McIntyre Chardonnay 2021 and you feel like you need a little bit more for your cellar, then you might want to grab some. This is this is very new for us, but we also seem to be racing through Estate Pinot Noir at the moment. So we just released the 2019 a couple of months ago, and we think that we're probably going to have sold out of 2019 Estate Pinot Noir within about a month, 6 weeks. So again, if the 2019 Pinot Noir is Estate Pinot Noir is making you happy and you're enjoying drinking it and you need a little bit more in your cellar, don't leave it too long to buy it. The 2020 will be delicious as well, and we'll be looking at that probably in the next Drinks with Kate box, not the one that we're starting next week, but the one after that. There'll be some new vintages in there, so very exciting. So the Estate Pinot Noir 2019, grab some while it's still around. Thank you, Craig, for both of your comments. Very nice. So yeah, very exciting. So it's been a big week, and yeah, I'm just happy to be sitting down. My God, I just looked at the time and we've been talking for 58 minutes and nearly 30 seconds. So I know we did wine and cocktails, so it was always going to be a long session, and there's only 15 of you still there. So eek emergency orders indeed, Connie. So my dear Drinks with Kate friends, I'm going to leave you to it. Let you get on with the rest of your evenings. Hello, Sonia. How lovely to see you. Cheers. Thank you. It has been a great session, hasn't it, Michael? I've really enjoyed it. Been lots of fun. I hope that whether you're drinking cocktails or Barbera, you've had a nice time. I'm glad I'm a bit tipsy over there from the cocktail on a school night. Absolutely. Next week, we are starting box 4. So no, we're not on a break next week, Craig, unless you guys need a break. Do you need a break? My plan was to start box 4 next week. Has yours arrived, Craig? It should be there. I think that most of our interstate folks have got in early with their orders. So yeah, next week we start with box 4. I can't even remember what the wine was, and I don't have my phone with me to look up, but I will send you an email on Monday with all the instructions. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you all next week. Good, excellent, Craig. Safeguarded from Karen. Box 4 next week. I'll see you all then. Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely evening. Magic Stalk Shiraz, of course, David. Magic Stalk Shiraz. Lovely to see you. Thanks very much, everyone. Take care. Love you all.